Tea Time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Good afternoon, I am Destiny Momo. This is News Update. Good evening, I beg your pardon. On the state's acting Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa has frozen the accounts of 18 local government areas and 33 local council development areas. Aiyedatiwa will become acting governor after Governor Rotimi Akeredolu's medical treatment abroad instructed the newly created LCDAs not to open new accounts. Aiyedatiwa's Deputy Chief of Staff, Omojua Olusegun, will be responsible for preparing and signing his official engagements for the time being. The Chief of Protocol will take over this responsibility once the governor returns from his medical vacation. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has urged ambassadors to explore new trade relations with foreign investors. He received letters of credence from Hungary's ambassador Laurent Andrefi, Rwanda's High Commissioner Christophe Bazivamo, and Ukraine's ambassador Ivan Kolostenko. Tinubu assured foreign investors of predictable fund repatriation and streamlining of the tax system. He also emphasized the need for expedited processing of trapped funds and the readiness of Rwanda to enhance bilateral relations with Nigeria. Meanwhile, Vice President Kashim Shettima has inaugurated a Nutrition Core Working Committee, NCWC, to tackle acute malnutrition. The committee, dubbed the Intellectual Powerhouse, will work with the National Committee on Food and Nutrition to combat hunger and malnutrition. Shettima emphasized the need for coordination and collaboration with the NCFN. The committee's mandate extends beyond healthcare, encompassing education and the socio-economic impact of malnutrition. And Honorable Sergius Ogo, a former House of Representatives member, has joined the Labour Party's Edo State governorship race. He believes in the common man and will prioritize food security and healthcare if elected. Ogo represented Ishan North, East, South, East in the 8th and 9th National Assembly and has announced his intention to run at the Labour Party Secretariat in Benin City.
For the ordinary people, the ordinary Nigerians, the commoners, the downtrodden of this country, they are the people we fight for in this party, and they are the people we must liberate. We don't have anything against the rich, we don't have anything against the elites. All we are saying, those below them must be allowed to breathe. And Labour government in Osadebe Avenue will liberate them in this state. We don't have any problem with somebody sending the children abroad to school. If you're a rich man and you're in the private sector and you are paying your tax, we don't have any problem with that. If you are in the private sector and you are a rich man, you pay your tax, we don't have any problem with you going overseas to do medical checkup. But you cannot be in government and use government resources to do that.
The National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, has issued a warning to corps members against engaging in drug abuse, cybercrime, and social media bullying, stating that youth service is crucial for national unity and urging them to avoid truancy at their primary assignments.
As you leave the camp today, you are expected to report to your places of primary assignments promptly and complete all the necessary documentation. Settle down and avoid truancy. Similarly, let me strongly warn you to desist from drug abuse, cybercrime, abuse of social media, and any acts capable of endangering your lives and denting the image of yourselves, your parents, and the NYSC.
He urged the government to establish an entrepreneurship program that assists corps members during and after their service year in becoming self-employed in labor employers.
The reality on ground is the jobs are not available. So if government could come up with this program by way of training the corps members to learn one skill or the other during the service year, it means government is trying to prepare them to have jobs at the end of the service. Whether the white-collar job comes around or it doesn't come around, at least the corps members will have something doing during the service year and after the service year. So by so doing, we are talking of the corps members who will now be employers of labor instead of looking for the job or instead of taking much of their time in the labor market.
Upon completion of their 3-week orientation camp, some corps members expressed their delight in learning about different cultures of the North, learn different cultures and other issues.
Amazing getting to Kaduna for the first time. I was actually scared initially, but on arriving camp was really interesting. I met a lot of new faces, people from the east, Lagos. It's just mind-blowing. Kaduna is really interesting. The camp entirely is amazing.
This is the first time I'm traveling out of Edo State, so I really enjoyed myself. I tasted new food. I tried some of their cultures, including my lali. This is the first time, so everything was fun for me. I tried to make new friends. I tried to learn some Awusasha because I studied Tanda, and the person that taught us, she made it so interesting and fun. I tried it for the first time, and it came out so well. I was so happy.
And now moving on to other parts of Africa. The Economic Community of Central African States, ECOWAS, has maintained the suspension of Gabon, a country suspended following the overthrow of President Ali Bongo Ondimba by the military in August. The suspension was imposed after the transitional period which ended the Bongo dynasty and led to condemnation from Western capitals. The suspension was maintained until constitutional order is restored. General Brice Oligui Nguema, who took power in August, has met with all ECOWAS member countries' leaders except for Angolan President João Lourenço. From news outside Africa, Israeli forces have launched attacks on Khan Yunis in the south of Gaza, leaving many dead. Qatar has confirmed that talks are ongoing to evaluate a new truce. At least 18,787 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October 7, following Hamas' attack on Israel. Al Jazeera and other journalists, Abu Dhaka and Well Dabdo, were targeted by a drone strike, with Abu Dhaga dying after paramedics were prevented from reaching him. And now moving on to business news. The federal government and Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited have secured a landmark judgment over oil mining leases formerly operated by ADAX. The Federal High Court in Abuja struck out Gasti Engineering Limited lawsuit, describing it as incompetent. The court ruled that Gati's case lacked merit due to their failure to fulfill the signature bonus requirement, rendering it frivolous in law. The court also found that Castec failed to join the necessary parties to the suit, resulting in an abuse of the court process. And our entertainment news, Nicki Minaj has denied Kanye West's request to use her verse from their 2018 track, New Body, on his new album, Vultures, on Thursday. To X to share a screenshot of a text message he sent to Nicki asking for her permission to use the track. Shortly after, Nicki Minaj went on Instagram Live to reject his request, citing the song's age. Nicki later elaborated on the status of New Body during an interview with Hot 106 in February 2022. And in sports news, French forward Christopher Nkunku will be a part of Chelsea's squad for the first time this season when they face Sheffield United this weekend. Manager Mauricio Pochettino said this on Friday. Nkunku signed from RB Leipzig in July, but required surgery on a knee injury he suffered in pre-seasons. Chelsea have struggled with injuries since the start of the season. And there are more bad news last weekend when 3 players went off injured during the 2-0 defeats at Everton. That's the news update. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us from Limex on limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. I am Destiny Momo. Many thanks for watching.
An African girl somewhere is sitting at home, accompanied by dreams that seem so far away. Africa is one of the continents with the highest out-of-school percentage in education, and girls are at an early disadvantage. The sub-Saharan Africa records about 18 million out-of-school girls. This gender gap extends to the tech space with a projection of only a 33% global female workforce representation in tech firms for 2022. Let us help change the stories and numbers. Africa Agility's Project Train a Girl campaign is working to help train African girls in tech. You can donate as little as $2 or 2,000 Naira to help a girl in tech get her heels in the door. Visit www.africaagility.rallyup.com/PTAG to donate.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
My heart bleeds because I've walked this path. I grew up in a home where I worked.
My name is Dakpo Ademosu. Here is my good old day story. I am always filled with nostalgia each time I remember those good old days. I look into the past with joy and gaze into the future with hopes of brighter things to come. I have many stories to tell, Was it when I followed my mother to J. Allen at Okebola in Ibadan to buy her brand new Mitsubishi Lancer car at a price of 1,310 naira? Or was it when she decided to change one of the tires of the very same car that she has used regularly for over 3 years at 22 naira? Those were interesting days when you dare not bring home a strange pencil or ruler without getting the beating of your life as if you stole a goat in the marketplace. Days at my former school, United Missionary College, Ibadan, UMC, when you would prefer to run away instead of facing a beating for losing your Cortina shoes, even though it was only one leg you lost, but still the same offense. After a school football 3-a-side set with our monkey posts. Oh, our parents at that time certainly did not spare the rod just to ensure that we are all who we are today. We surely turned out good. Wow, life was good in those days when every naming ceremony must come with puff-puff or pancake for the whole neighborhood. And each time you see those covered dishes arriving, you know that somebody is doing a naming ceremony nearby. We all rejoice because we have to share in the puff-puff. And same thing goes with the Ileya meat. Every neighbor shares the Ileya meat with the neighbors. And later years, we were always excited when school vacation was approaching for possible openings in organizations for a 1-month vacation job, which is supposed to train us on the value of money. And we were trained to develop a sense of responsibility and a culture of savings. How can I forget growing up with Kolo in my possession, which now all the children call piggy banks? That is, if any child has a piggy bank anymore. Every child had one those days. Sadly today, the narratives are different. Wealth acquisition mentally has taken over the drive for relevance. Even those with no visible trackable jobs have become role models of some sort, rolling out stocks of followers on the internet with no visible means of income or revenue that can always be substantiated. And I stop to think, why can't we have a brighter future that will be better than those good old days? Can we change the narrative? Yes, we can. Our children deserve a brighter and a better tomorrow, not a good old days, because that is gone forever. But we can still build on the future with discipline, foresight, and perseverance. Let us make the difference now for the sake of our children's tomorrow. Today, I join Shemore in his collective drive towards a greater tomorrow. Thank you.
Menstrual cycle is a way the body of a woman releases tissues that is no longer needed in the body. Every month, the body of a woman prepares for pregnancy. The lining of the uterus gets thicker as preparation for nurturing the fertilized egg. There are 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, which is menstruation, the follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. Common menstrual problems include heavy or painful periods and premenstrual syndrome, PMS. In an interview with the family physician, Dr. Nwachukwu Chukwuemeka, he gives a deeper explanation of the menstrual cycle.
Menstrual cycle is defined as a time clock within a female or a woman of reproductive age, especially from puberty, where there is a production of the eggs in your ovaries, and then the preparation of the womb to receive this egg, hoping that it will be fertilized, and then the discharge of this egg when it is not fertilized, or the growing of this fertilized egg into a baby. Okay, so now that cycle takes usually a month, and this cycle usually a month averagely, so it seems to take 28 days. However, there are variances, so we give a normal phase of plus or minus 7 days, meaning that it could span from 21 days to 35 days. So that's why it varies for women. So the menstrual cycle is the period from the release or the preparation of the eggs in the ovaries to the release of these ovaries down to the womb, and then it is discharged and you all see it as blood.
Dr. Chukwuemeka explains why some women go through pains before or during the cycle, which makes them use hot water bottle to soothe it before they will be relieved for some time.
Painful menstruation, which can be described as dysmenorrhea, is possible because, first, during the movement of the eggs, there are lots of hormonal activities, and it has seen first to be either due to the tubes, the contractions of the tubes, especially when you're talking about before the period, especially in ovulation. So there's usually ovulation pain, which is milder than the menstrual pain itself. So the contraction of the fallopian tubes is a milking movement, milking the eggs through the tubes into the ovary. Okay, and then when it gets into the ovary, it stays for approximately 24 hours and then begins to degenerate. Before then, the womb is preparing a space, a bed for this egg to be implanted if it's fertilized. But while it's doing that, it's not implanted. And so that brings me to the stages of the menstrual cycle. So there is the proliferative stage, which is the stage at which there's production of many things. And then there's a secretory phase, which is the phase where the egg is expecting to, to be fertilized, and then also expecting to either become a baby or it is discarded. All right. So when that happens and this egg is not fertilized, the uterus begins to contract in order to expel it. That contraction is usually painful. Imagine your fist very tight. Okay, especially for a woman who hasn't given birth before. That's how tight her uterus is. Very small and tight, compact. Now, within that fist is a slit, a tiny slit that allows for this egg. Now, when this fist is going to contract on itself, the pain will be heavy compared to a woman who has given birth before. So there's a lot of space and contractions, is a little milder. So that's why the painful menstruation gets better with childbirth. Okay, however, that is the typical case. There are atypical cases where the painful feeling increases even with age and childbirth. All right, but majority of the times it gets better in childbirth. So whether the use of the hot bottled waters or the use of drugs, the idea is that you're trying to reduce the level of tension this uterus go through to milk out all the blood, all the mucous layers that it has produced.
Doctors advise women to keep the calendar dates to help monitor their menstrual period to ensure balance. However, they are advised to see their physicians when there is an imbalance in the calculation of their menstrual cycle.
For imbalances in times of menstrual flow for many women, it's in the normal context. I said that the normal is 28 days plus or minus 7. Now, what that means is that you have a range from 21 days to 35 days. But ideally, there shouldn't be an excessive gap between the days. So when someone says, I have a 28-day cycle, what that means is it shouldn't exceed some days from that 28 days. When they cannot calculate it, there is an underlying pathology. There's a problem. There are few problems that have been identified or itemized. One of them is when people have pelvic inflammatory disease, what you call the urinary tract infection or the toilet infection. What happens is that those infections they alter the flow between 1 month and the next month. So when women are not able to calculate, they may need to see their physician to identify what exactly is causing the disparity, the long-term disparity. But if there are a few days, then you shouldn't say you don't know. If they're probably 2 or 3 days apart, then it's still within the range. Okay, but when they are like 1 week apart, 5-7 days apart, then there's an underlying condition. Or when it comes too early, there's an underlying condition.
Overaged pain in some women during the menstrual cycle needs to be investigated, and if there is no problem, then it could be a change in their system.
Many women feel unbearable menstrual pain at their older ages, which is very atypical from the normal. So the response to such is that they need to be investigated properly. They need to. It's very typical, and if they're investigated and there is no reason, then they may be let low like that, or have some hormonal replacements done for them. But if they're investigated, there are certain things that can be the cause. One of them is, like I said, could be a fibroid. Another could be what we call the endometriosis. Okay, endometriosis is the presence of tissues, uterine tissues, in another part of the stomach. So whenever the stomach is beginning to experience that firing impulse, that tissue, wherever it is, it could be in the womb, it could be in the stomach generally, it could be on the broad ligament, that tissue also fires, and then they feel the peppery sensation at that point. Okay, it could even still be a PID, pelvic inflammatory disease. Now, this condition happening at an older age is very possible, but must be investigated and properly treated. However, if investigated and nothing is found, then it can be classified as an atypical situation. And more often than not, hormonal play.
Medication during the menstrual cycle must be recommended.
First of all, it's not very ideal to openly, prescribe, and then, because what you do is that you validate certain things in the public. People should really be investigated. People should see their doctors, and then he knows what. But yeah, the use of Felvin has been made public already. It could be right and could be acceptable. However, it comes with a side effect, which is intensifying stomach pain in ulcer patients. So it simply means that an ulcer patient cannot use Felvin, or it can cause ulcer because it's an NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, which means that it can potentiate the possibility for an ulcer. That also means that if a patient has ulcer, it's contraindicated. If a patient can have ulcer, it's contraindicated as well. Now, there are many analgesics that are available, simple analgesics ranging from paracetamol. All right. The problem is that many times we want the very hard one, ranging from paracetamols to some of the codeines, sometimes depending on how heavy the pain is. More importantly is the use of relaxants. So there are smooth muscle relaxants, some of which we call hyoscine, that we popularly know as Buscopan. These can be used as well to relax it. But beyond that, there are many other treatment plans for painful menstruation. So these simple things can be used as well.
Statistically, painful menstruation can be experienced in about 45% to 70% of women. From puberty to before conception, it can be seen in about 60% of women in that age group. Then, as they get older, it reduces. In the world population, menstrual pain is experienced in over 5,000 women to about 1.5 million in different locations. It is more prevalent in Africans than the Caucasians.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Cooking is considered a basic life skill, but some have honed that skill and turned it into a profitable business. This is the story of Abiola Akanji, popularly called Chef Stone. Abiola Akanji discovered his love for cooking at a very early age.
The name came from business school. When I was in business school in London, they used to call me Mr. Stone, the man that cannot be moved. Because when I set my mind to something, there's nothing you can say to stop me from doing it, basically. Unlike many boys, I was in the kitchen more than on the field. I wasn't a football person. I wasn't really a sporty kid. I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my mom. I was really fascinated with food and baking and anything to do with food. I used to be that kid that anytime a food show comes up, I'll be right in front of the TV watching. My mom enjoyed that because it got us closer together. But my dad really didn't think much of it. Like most African dads, you know, it just thought, you know, it just doesn't like playing football. It likes being in the kitchen. After I went to London for university, while I was in London, I worked as a chef throughout. So that was for me like the ultimate thing, work around food. And that's where I kind of found the passion for cooking and being a chef. But I still, at that point, didn't think I was going to do a business of it because I was studying business. My dad worked in the bank for 35 years. I was never going to come back and say, I don't want to do that. I want to come and be a chef. So for me, it was never a business until I moved back to Nigeria and saw that the industry was totally non-existent. There was nobody was teaching anybody how to be a chef. You have to go abroad to learn or work under someone for many, many years to learn. So that's where I kind of got a gap in the market that I really wanted to fill. I think that point was a tipping point, really, because I remember, you know, when I broke it to my dad that, look, I don't want to be a banker. I don't want to. He had interviews lined up for me, like, you work in a bank here. I know this man. I know that man. Like every African father, I want to help his kid. And then I'll go for the interview and I'll almost sabotage it because I didn't want to work there. From there, I'll walk out and go to a restaurant and tell them I'm a chef. I just came back from London. I want to show you what I can do. I was trying to get a job, but the pay was so low. And I just saw that, look, it wasn't going to happen. So I just thought, you know what, I need to set up a school where we can train chefs here. And I had to go to my dad because I wanted to go to culinary school. Because all these years, I'd never gone to culinary school. I just kind of learned from working. But if I was going to teach other people, I need to learn how it's done properly. So I went back to my dad and I said, you know, Dad, I don't want to do this. I don't want to wear a tie. I feel choked with that tie. I want to cook. This is what I love. And he said, you must be mad. And I called my mom and said, you know, your son has obviously run mad. You know, after all the money we paid, you know, sending him to university, now he says he wants to be a cook. You know, that talk to your son, you know, talk some sense into him. And my mom was very supportive. She said, you know what, this is what you want to do. You know, she tried to talk to my dad. It was a little bit of a fight at home, but eventually my dad came through and said, he thought it was a phase. He thought, you know what, let me send him to culinary school. Maybe after a while he'll come back and see that that's not really what I want to do. But it stuck because, you know, I'm the stone. If I set my mind to something, I just have to do it. So, you know, I went to culinary school and he supported it. Today he's proud of me. He always calls me, my son is a principal. He owns a school here, owns a school in Abuja. So he's very proud now. I'm glad. The culinary school was 6 months. I did a program at the French Culinary Institute in New York. And for me, I didn't go to culinary school to learn how to cook because I'd worked in 5 restaurants, some of them really top restaurants in London. So I knew how to cook, but I wanted to understand the teaching side. I wanted to understand how to run a culinary school, the business side of it. You know, so when I went to London, I studied business. It really came in handy as well. So all my time in culinary school, all I was gathering was data and knowledge. I pretty much used to talk to everybody from cleaners to receptionists because I wanted to understand everything. And with cooking of food also, I wanted to understand the whys and the whats and why are we adding this? Why are we doing it for so long? So I'm one of those annoying students that will keep on asking questions. And that's because everything I learn to be able to reteach. So for me, it was very important that I understand everything around it. You know, part of the deal with my dad was, look, if you're going to go to culinary school, it was going to pay half of it, and if I can raise half of it. So I did raise almost half, but it paid the rest. But in raising that half, I sold everything I had, basically. I had a car, I sold it. I started a dry cleaning business. I sold that to my friend. I borrowed money. So I came back to Nigeria, and there was no money left to start up. Even though I had these big dreams when I was in culinary school that when I get back, it's going to look like this, it's going to look like that. But unfortunately, I came back and I was broke. So I had no choice but to start small, which when I teach students about business of food now, I always advise them, look, try to start small. You know, big dreams are good, but it's better to grow into it. So I rented a small apartment. The kitchen in it was smaller than this office. And that's where Red Dish actually started from. It was in Egbeda, which is a remote area that I thought nobody was going to come for. But when I started letting people know that, look, I'm training people for a culinary school, people got excited, and I got my first 3 students that registered. Those 3 students still ended up working with Red Dish up on, 2 of them still work in Red Dish today. 1 of them traveled abroad. So they were so sold on the dream back then that they wanted to be a part of it after they finished their program. But yes, it was really small, nothing like what you see here today. It was really tiny. This is our studio kitchen. We use this for recording sometimes, and sometimes we teach here as well. The professional 1-year students use this as their classroom as well. This is Chef Nikki, and this is Dami, in charge of our PR. I think when I started, I had a lot of doubts. At the point I was thinking maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should go and beg my dad and say I want that bank job, because it was tough. Because first of all, Nigerians thought, even one of my friends was telling me that, why are you trying to teach people? Nobody wants to learn. They learn from their mothers, or, why are you trying to teach people how to cook? This is stuff that people learn at home, and they're like, you're a guy, you should be working here. So I had a lot of negativity around it, that, this is never going to work. People thought that after like a year, everything will fall apart. This is not a business that's sustainable. So that was tough. And then also, sourcing ingredients. I came back from French Culinary School where they taught different things. Here in Nigeria, we did not have a lot of the ingredients. So I had to almost dumb down the syllable a lot to start. And then we built on that again. So it was tough. A lot of Nigerians didn't know a lot of the stuff that we were trying to teach then. So we had to come down and go back and review. And a lot of things I learned along the way about running business in Nigeria. Because while I was in the UK, I used to run a business there. It was very different to when I got here and I saw the way things were done. You don't have any support from the government, you don't have support from anybody. You're pretty much on your own. So it's been tough. All right, this is the pantry. Very, very busy. You can pass through. We call this the demonstration kitchen, or the demo kitchen. And this, the different classes go on here, but the continental class is currently going on here. Chef Isi and Chef Lola. What are we making today? Okay. I think for this business, it's been mostly organic growth. We've shied away from trying to get loan and trying to get finance, because we find that, look, you don't want to put yourself in a corner, especially in this economy where things are not as it seems and things are very quick. So the dollar is increasing every time. If you get finance from an American company, for example, and they give you dollars, they're going to expect dollars back. By the time you're paying the dollars rate has changed, you're losing money. So for me, I've tried as much as possible to grow as organically as possible, so that we are not shackled and tied up. But you can still get finance, you can still get capital, but we have tried as much as possible to just grow organically. So when I say organically, I mean basically, like I said, I started small, and when I started with almost nothing. I did all the decor myself, I did woodwork myself, everything. I came from a DIY culture living in the UK, so I did a lot of that myself. So as people paid money, as the money was coming in the business, where I was reinvesting in the business. And then when it was time to move from my home to another place, I met a friend that is now the director here. He runs the Lagos school now. So he was the only person that believed in the dream and put forward some money towards the business. But since then, what we've basically done is reinvested money back in the business. So we are not frivolous people. We're not trying to be big boys. So we try as much as possible to just reinvest the money in the business, use it to grow the business on its own.
The food service industry is growing fast, which makes becoming a chef a lucrative and appealing career path for many people. Additionally, the growth of the Food Network and proliferation of YouTube celebrity chefs have glamorized the industry. However, success in the food service industry isn't easy. 60% of restaurants don't make it past their first year, and 80% go out of business within 5 years. According to an IBIS World Report on single-location full-service restaurants in the US, 67% of a restaurant's costs go directly to wages and purchase expenses. Additionally, the average profit margin for a restaurant after removing all other costs is only 6.2%. With a profit margin this slim, insolvency is unfortunately never far away. However, in Nigeria, the fast food industry is a major contributor to the economy, and it is one of the most lucrative businesses in Nigeria today. The annual value of the fast food business in Nigeria was 250 billion naira in 2015, which is approximately $700 million. The Association of Fast Food and Confectioners of Nigeria indicated that the size of the fast food industry in Nigeria grows at the rate of 4% annually, with a rapid rate of return on investment. According to a research paper, the number of fast food restaurants in Nigeria is increasing at a geometric rate and may double in 5 years.
I think one of the biggest inspirations for starting up the culinary school was the fact that restaurants were going abroad to bring in chefs. So they would go and hire their head chef and pay him in dollars, amounting to millions. They'll give them accommodation, travel, all of that as a package. And then they'll find people that were not trained chefs, hire them, and then pay them peanuts, and then all of that. So, for me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that, good food is going to come out of that kitchen. So that was one of my biggest inspirations. And for me, we've worked with a lot of restaurants. We still work with a lot of restaurants. And for me, it was about showing them that we can grow our own talents here. We have a lot of talented chefs that came out of Red Dish, some earning over $1 million now as chefs in restaurants. And that, for me, is what keeps me going, because there's a lot of time I think, this is getting a lot. But when I see my students doing great things, growing up in the ranks, and then remembering back to when I was trying to look for a job and they were offering me 30,000 naira as a chef, even though I just came back from the UK, that was what really, this is the things that I look at and I say, I have to keep going for the thousands of people that still have this dream of becoming a chef and working as a chef. But I think restaurants are getting more open to the idea of we don't have to go abroad. We have a lot of homegrown talents. We have a culinary school in Nigeria now that we can go to and they can give us chefs. So part of our program here also is when you finish your professional chef's training, there's an internship for 3 months in a restaurant or hotel. So by the time you go there and gain some experience there, most of these restaurants will want to retain you. So again, we're trying to help to create jobs and create opportunities for some of our students. So for me, I have a restaurant project that is 5 years in the making. And the reason it's 5 years in the making is I want to get it right. I'm not in a hurry to get it. It's going to be called The Burgundy. It's Africa. It's not just Nigeria. So the idea is I have a tour of Africa this year. I'm going to travel to 10 countries in Africa. I'm going to Namibia shortly, and then Ethiopia. And the idea is to go and experience food, experience cultures, and bring back a little bit of what I experienced to the table at the Burgundy. So I'm going to do 10 countries and end back in Nigeria here for the launch of the restaurant, which hopefully would be one of the first restaurants in Africa to be internationally recognized and hopefully win a Michelin star. I think our palettes are opening up a bit more. I think 10 years ago, if I brought lobster for you or I brought you oysters, you'd be repulsed, you'd be like, what is this? You won't want to eat it, you'd be scared. But I think more people are more traveled now. The networks and TV networks have shown more food programs, international food programs. A lot more people know ingredients that they didn't know 10 years ago. So I think the culture is changing. People's palettes are opening more. They are more willing to try new things. They are seeing how to cook more things. So I think definitely we're going in the right direction. I would say it's a tough business. Just knowing how to cook is not enough. A lot of people think because they can cook or because their families have said, oh, your food is amazing, you should start a business. A lot of them think, let's go for it. But you need to also learn the business side of food. Like people say, oh, you can't go wrong with food. That's a lie. You can easily go wrong with food. And a lot of food businesses close every year. You just see them, they start up and they can't survive. So you have to understand the business side of it. If you don't understand it, then you need to find somewhere to learn and educate yourself. And with being a chef, you can never stop learning. Learning I learn every day. I open up a book, I look online, I go on TV. I'm learning. The best chefs in the world are the ones that continuously learn, and they are not too proud. So don't be hasty to become a celebrity chef or be an Instagram chef. Learn your trade, learn your craft, better yourself, and continue learning. That's what I would advise.
The success that restaurant businesses has met with can be attributed to the fact that eating is a necessity. As a matter of fact, it is the number one need of man. Another factor that has contributed to the success of restaurant businesses is the busy lifestyle that an average Nigerian leads. Most people are so busy that they consider home cooking a waste of time. The business, when planned and executed well, rarely experiences poor sales. Even when other commodities experience poor sales, restaurant business thrives. This is largely attributed to the limitless target market for the business. Despite the success of the industry, please be warned, it is not rosy all the way. Running a restaurant is quite a tedious task. In fact, it is one of the most stressful businesses to run in Nigeria. The biggest risk for the restaurant industry is rising wages and food costs. If you're not constantly working to improve profitability and grow your revenue, the costs will take over. Despite the challenges associated with owning a restaurant, many individuals have found successes in this sector of the economy. According to Chef Heroes, in an economy like Nigeria's, where it is difficult to get funding, food business is one of the fastest businesses you can start with little or no capital. As a matter of fact, he stated, "I started my business with 25,000 naira. And today, we are a multi-million naira company." A lot of people have seen the journey of a few chefs and have been inspired by it, so much so that I can advise that if you are out of a job or you are not getting enough on the job, start a snack business and deliver to your friends. Before you know it, orders will be coming in. There is enough space for everyone. We are a country with a population of about 200 million people. People need food. The demand is really huge. Thus, venturing into the food service industry in Nigeria with proper planning and execution is definitely not a bad idea.
Part of the things we're still struggling with now is the fact that a lot of people have spoiled the name Nigeria, and one of the things we're trying to get, one of the accreditations we're trying to get is City and Guilds, which we got so far with them, and then all of a sudden they said they're not doing Nigeria anymore. Like anything Nigeria they're not doing, because so many people have been so fraudulent with it. Someone will get the accreditation and then be selling it to other schools, and then they would be using that person. So, it was hard for them. So they had to stop it. So we're now going through Ghana, which, doesn't make a lot of sense, So I think a lot of things has gotten to that stage where we're having to double fight. We're having to give them extra assurances. So we've partnered with a lot of bodies. We've partnered with some other schools abroad as well, so that our certificate is also recognized in those countries. So we're having to go through channels that normally should be a simple process for us. But because it's Nigeria, they always feel like, look, you guys are going to get this, and then you're going to start, selling it again to other people to make money, and that's because a lot of people have done that. So we pride ourselves on our reputation, and our reputation speaks for us. So our students that do go abroad as well. So for example, people can use that as a direct entry. So if you get a certificate from Reddish, you can use that for direct. I think it's called direct entry program or something for Canada, which a lot of our students are doing. But we're also drilling it down into the students that you're not just going there and then you get there and you become lazy. You always have to remember that you're from Reddish. And what you do will set a precedent for the rest of our students that are open to come there. So you need to make us proud. It was a name that stuck. So when I started the whole thing and I started cooking, my mom gave me, when I came back, my mom gave me this set of plates that were red in color. And I started cooking and plating and posting on Instagram and Twitter. And I would post daily on this red plate. And one guy on Instagram just said, "This guy, you have come again. You want to kill us with your red dish Chronicles." And the name just, everybody started saying Red Dish Chronicles. It became an hashtag, and then it just stuck. And I just figured, you know what, since everybody already knows Red Dish, the culinary school will be called Red Dish Chronicles. Apart from food, I'm big on photography. I love photography. I'm getting into other aspects of photography that is not even food now, and I'm doing a lot of cinematography as well. I feel like the space, the cinematographic space for food is very, very limiting in Nigeria. We don't have a lot of food content out there, so I am very eager to push that food content out there. So yeah, photography, big on that. I like holidays. I don't get a lot of them, but my wife forces it. Every year we have to go somewhere at least, or 2 places. And when I'm on holiday, I try as much as possible not to think about work, or I will go and hide somewhere and quickly text and say, you guys must do this, and then get back to the holiday. And so I do like traveling a lot. You know, so I use that as, because when I'm in Nigeria, there's no chance. I'm working Monday to Sunday. I'm working from early, I'm first to get to the office, last to leave. Thank you.
Minding your mannerisms in public signals civility. Your behavior determines how others perceive you, and if you can leave a good impression, why not?
When it comes to that, it's about really making sure that you don't do something that will make people upset. So let me give you a typical example, public toilet, right? You want to walk into that washroom nice and clean, and at the same time, you want to leave it clean for someone else to use it like that. But what you find is that some people use it haphazardly. They don't care about who's coming in next. And of course, people are disgruntled by the way the place is dirty, not kept well. And of course, we have a problem there, health and hygiene, right? That's a public place. When you think about the airplane, for example, the same thing as well. You are on the plane and you have children, and the children are making a whole lot of noise. You're disturbing the elderly people and other people who are sharing the same space with you. So when you're on the plane, you have to be mindful of other people that are going to be using it. So even when you're sitting down, it's a confined space, right? So you don't want to disturb other people. You want to make sure that you have a smooth ride without upsetting anyone while you're in that public space. What about when you're at the cinema as well? You know, a cinema is a place where, and a library, where you have to keep quiet. You don't want someone to keep telling you, shh, shh. What does that mean? You're not supposed to use your phone when you're in such places, like a library, for instance. Then you're in the supermarket as well. A whole lot of things. And many places where people are, I won't say maybe ignorant of other people, right? They think they're in their home. So you're in a reception in a restaurant, or you're in the reception of a hotel. You're not going to put your feet on the desk, on the table, as if, and you're watching the TV as if you're in your sitting room, right? So people wouldn't like that. I've seen cases where some people are in they're in the not waiting room. There's a public place where you can sit down in a hotel, right? And some people have taken off their shoes, put their feet on the table, and their hand behind them, they're watching the news. And like, hey, this is not your sitting room. You don't do things like that. Then when you talk about dining environments, you're in a restaurant. I have literally seen people, and I've done videos on it as well, where they've given you a napkin. It's for your hands. Wipe your hands down because you're about to eat. Then guess what happens? You see them using the same napkin to wipe their face, to wipe their hair. I've seen them do this. I'm like, oh, this is not the bathroom. So it's really about perception and how you want people to see you when you're in a public place.
When in the public, it is important to be courteous and respectful of others. You might not always know the rules, but if you make a genuine effort to be considerate of others with the intent not to disturb them, the conscious effort would show.
For me, I would love to see an environment where when we see something that is not right, we correct. I've done that severally, and I'm brave enough to do that. And most times when I finish speaking to the person says sorry, because maybe at the time they were doing it, they didn't realize how bad it was and the consequences to another person. But most times you find that they are truly sorry because It just didn't come down to that.
The rules of behavior when we're in public vary from culture to culture.
If you've ever been to Singapore and you're in a public train or any public environment, you're not allowed to chew chewing gum. And they made it a law. And so now people are very conscious. Don't chew chewing gum, you get fined, you can be imprisoned. So they've made it part of their lives.
However, culture is an ever-evolving phenomenon that changes as the needs of the people changes. We all have rights, but it has limitations where the exercise of your rights begins to infringe on the rights of others. Behaviors such as playing music or videos loudly on your phone in public, receiving calls loudly in public places, or even blowing horns arbitrarily can be seen as offensive. Here are some common etiquette to take note of in public. Offer up your seat. If you're in perfectly good health, offer your seat to anyone who is either in poor health or pregnant. Make commuting easier for those who need it. Let the waiter come to you. Never yell or wave your hand at a waiter while dining. Make their job easier by being patient or politely get their attention when they pass by. Know your audience. Be aware of who's around before engaging in hot topics. Respecting people's sensibilities is the proper way to behave. Make sure to tip. Tipping is essential for certain employees to make a decent income. Make sure to leave a tip as a token of your gratitude whenever possible. Even services you might not think of, like a haircut or dog grooming. Say excuse me. It's the polite thing to do when you bump into someone. Even if you're not really the one to blame, why not just avoid conflict and brush off the situation? Use a coaster. Spilling isn't the only way to make a mess with your cold beverage. Say please and thank you, especially to those closest to you. Smile at the cashier, the bank teller, the security man, your co-worker, even if he or she doesn't smile back. Hold the door for the person behind you, and if someone holds the door for you, remember to say thank you. Step outside to answer your phone calls. Sometimes you have to take an important call. It is important to step outside to take your call because it's not fun to hear your conversation when we're trapped behind you in a line. Give people a pass. Cranky salesperson, nasty driver, you have no idea what's going on with that person right now. You don't have to reward ugly behavior with your own nastiness, which only perpetuates the cycle. Look at the person who's speaking to you. It is polite to listen to people who are talking to you and not just type away on your smartphone. Let someone go in front of you in line. Cough or sneeze into your elbow. Put your smartphone away during meals. Be on time. Ask before posting. Not everyone wants to be all over social media and you're not a reporter, so stop spreading the news. Keep the noise down at work. Silence the ringer on your phone. Speak quietly and turn the sound down on your dinging emails so it's not bugging everyone you work with. Wash your hands after using the bathroom. Park your shopping cart on the side of the aisle. Ask permission to use someone's first name. Clean up after yourself, at home, at work, at a friend's house. Ask before bringing a guest. Don't assume they're automatically invited no matter how well you know your host or hostess. Stay at home when you're sick. Reach out to people who are grieving. Don't pretend nothing happened. If you don't know what to do or say, you can simply say you're sorry. Let people get off the elevator first before you get on. The same rules apply to trains and buses. Silence your smartphone at the movies and stop crinkling that candy wrapper so loudly while you're at it. Help someone who's clearly struggling. The next time you see someone straining to reach something on the highest shelf at the grocery store, help him or her out. Skip controversial or nosy topics at parties. Politics, religion, or asking when they're getting pregnant or how much weight they lost. Those topics are sensitive and should be off the table. When you enter a room, greet everyone. Return calls. If someone takes the time to leave you a voicemail, take the time to call him or her back. Use an earphone or headphone in public while scrolling through social media.
IPs. Federal government exempts universities, polytechnics, others. And Rivers crisis. Assembly declares seats of 27 lawmakers vacant as Amewele group convenes sitting a day after complex demolition. I am Bola Oba, and this is Plus Politics. Federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education have been taken off the Integrated Personnel Payment System, IPS. The exemption approval reached during the Federal Executive Council meeting at the Presidential Villa in Abuja on Wednesday comes as a relief to tertiary institutions across the country. The Minister of Education, Professor Taye Mamman, disclosed this while briefing State House correspondents alongside other ministers on the outcome of the Federal Executive Council meeting, noting that this takes immediate effect. According to him, the Council observed that vice-chancellors of universities did not need to abandon their work to come to Abuja to process the salaries of their personnel.
Happy day for the education sector. Because I've been complaining about having the subscription to IPPS. You know what IPPS does? And which has made recruitment and many other activities of the university relating to personnel very, very difficult. Now today, today's council, it has been decided, the president has directed that vice chancellor should no longer or have been taken out of that service. So this is a very, very important development for the vice chancellor that will allow for efficient management of the universities and tertiary education, generally speaking. And then secondly, which is connected to that, before now, when the tertiary education institutions want to make recruitment, they have to run to the office of the head of service, for waiver, for approval, for all that sort of thing. Today too, the council, through the directive of the president, has exempted them from that they will have nothing to do. They don't have to go to the office of the head of service because it is actually not in their line of supervision. So that too, that has been a big bottleneck in management of staff in the universities where they have to apply to that office whenever there are vacancies and have built up a lot of vacancies in the universities and polytechnics, and that level of service, waiting sometimes for years, for months. And so from this, at this today's meeting, the NUC at the Federal Ministry of Education is there. So that's a very big relief for the universities, and we sincerely hope these measures will be responsibly reciprocated by the institutions.
Joining us is former ASU chairman, Professor Rufus Olowe. Prof, good to have you on Plus Politics.
Thank you very much.
Prof, what would be your initial response to the two concessions made by the Federal Executive Council yesterday to what has been ASU's age-long agitations?
Well, thank you very much. This is actually a welcome development because the ASU have been pressing on this matter for a long time. Universities are supposed to have their own autonomy. IBPS, as you see, is an encouragement to the autonomy of the universities. Because for everything to be done centrally at Abuja, that means that each university governing council or the university management, they have no control over over the staff and the movement of the staff. In fact, we have